Before we kick off the debate, I also want to thank the partners in the conference, the Science Business Network members first, and thank you for all of you who are in the room today, and the International Science Council. So thank you for supporting this conference. All right, well, it's time to start. I'll stay here, but for the first moderation, I'll be joined by my colleague, editorial director and vice chair of the board, Richard Hudson, who's going to join us live from Washington. And Rich, are you with us, Rich?
Yes, I'm with you. I'm right here in Washington.
Very good. Hi, Rich. So you stay here, you stay put, and I'm going to introduce our first guest. Live from Kyiv, we have the honor to be joined today by Olga Polotska. Olga is the executive director of the National Research Foundation of Ukraine. And to put a little bit of context, I thought it was a detail that matters. We first encountered Olga, well, our executive editor, Florin Jubascu, first interviewed Olga just a few days after the invasion of Ukraine by Russia. And in the first weeks of the war, she was helping deliver food and supplies across Kiev. And at night, she was going back to her work for the foundation from the relative safety of a bomb shelter. All right? So that gives a little bit of context. So Olga, if you're with us, many thanks for joining us today. I'll now give you the floor for a few minutes, and I'll ask you just to answer a few questions. What's the situation in Ukraine? Is science still going on? And what does the Ukrainian science community expect from the West? So not easy questions, but the floor is yours. Olga.
Hello, everybody. Well, thank you for having me today, and thank you for mentioning that we already have history with Science Europe, and that's true. The first interview that was published by Science Business, well, actually, that was on the 28th of February, on the fourth day of the war. Well, thank you for inviting me and for letting me to voice the needs of Ukrainian researchers. Not to waste time, I must say that just the full-scale war launched by Russia against Ukraine and de facto against modern democratic civilization not only initiated the global energy and humanitarian crisis, but also dealt a powerful blow to Ukrainian research system. The situation in this sphere is unprecedented and remains uncertain. A couple of words about the foundation. The National Research Foundation of Ukraine is a state budgetary non-profit organization, and the main purpose of the foundation is grant support for fundamental research in natural, technical, social, humanitarian sciences, as well as applied research and developments in priority areas of science and technology. The foundation was established by the Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine and reports directly to it. So we can operate both public funds and funds coming from other sources, for example, donations. Our grant season in 2022 was suspended early in March this year until the final victory, as all the grant funds in the amount of approximately 25 million euros were directed to ensure the needs of the armed forces of Ukraine. And now let's just share some statistical information. The data comes from official websites of the Ministry of Education and Science of Ukraine, the National Academy of Sciences, and this is also the data collected by the National Research Foundation of Ukraine, and this is relevant as of August this year. As for the damages, 131 universities and colleges have been damaged so far, including 22 completely destroyed. In the sphere of the National Academy of Sciences, over 50 research institutions have been damaged or destroyed, many of them critically destroyed. As for the official statistics of human losses, as for researchers, it is not available at the moment, but we here at the Foundation have several examples. And for example, a PI of one of our projects Professor Kotko, who is an outstanding physicist and a correspondent member of the National Academy of Sciences, was shot in his car trying to escape, Warsaw, which is in Kiev region, in the middle of March. And now I would like to share some results of our surveys. So, the National Research Foundation of Ukraine has numerously contacted our grantees for, information. And besides, we have joined an initiative, Ukrainian Science Reload. This is a purely bottom-up initiative, not governmentally organized or managed, but a lot of work has been done. Among this work is a survey which was held in late spring this year. And according to this survey and the information which we have, before the Russian invasion, there were almost 80,000 researchers in Ukraine, registered in Ukraine. And according to experts, about 40% of the country's research workforce was seriously affected by the war. About 47% of respondents in the surveys are in Ukraine and did not change their place of residence because of the war. 38% of researchers stay in Ukraine but had to change their place of residence. So, they are internally relocated. And about 15% of researchers are now abroad, mainly female researchers. About 84% of respondents mentioned that as the result of the war, they found themselves in an extremely difficult financial situation. At the same time, many of them lost all their property and housing, especially the ones previously located in the east and the south of Ukraine. To the question, is it possible to engage in research activity to the same extent as in pre-war times? 73 respondents answered no, and the reasons are numerous to that. About 54% of respondents they are continue living, so they are located in areas where hostilities are not taking place. About 7% of researchers live in a settlement where hostilities are taking place. The rest live in some areas which are close to hostilities. So the information coming from temporarily occupied territories of Ukraine is not systematized, unfortunately. One of alarming tendencies is an example of unlawful actions. Actually, this is looting of Russian citizens on the territory of Ukraine. And these are numerous facts of removing research and laboratory equipment from Ukrainian universities and research institutions to the territory of the Russian Federation. And an example is, which is documented, the removal of unique research equipment, which costs over 10 million United States dollars from Chernobyl nuclear power plant, which used to be occupied. Our foundation has numerously contacted our grantees, and we were asking them many questions. And one of the main ones was, do they have enough resources to proceed with implementation of their projects in 2022 in case financing of the foundation is resumed? And actually, the negative answer came from approximately 22% of our grantees. And the main obstacle mentioned was relocation of project team members. So, that's the loss of connections. In the same survey, their main needs are outlined. For almost of them, the main thing is financial assistance, which would allow them to resume work on scientific projects. Ensuring this has been our main task since the beginning of the war. So, and I very briefly quote a letter which we received on the 31st of August this year. I'm not going to mention the name of the person who was writing, but just like that. Hello, I'm a senior researcher at the Institute of Mathematics of the National Academy of Sciences of Ukraine. I would like to consult someone about whether I have a chance to get at least some small grant. I will be honest with you, I decided to contact you only in connection with the current situation. If this continues, then soon I will not have enough money even for food. I have already been in a similar situation. Thank you in advance. So, and very briefly about the needs, what we would like the international community to pay attention to, when designing any kind of help to Ukrainian research system. So first, it's communication with Ukrainian institutions as insiders and assessment of available ways to support Ukrainian researchers. Then it's very important to distinguish between emergency measures and long-term support. So, well, we would also invite, international partners to active participation in design of a roadmap for support and recovery of Ukrainian research system. We consider it vital that any equivalent of the Marshall Plan or a long-term plan for recovery of Ukrainian science should include a chapter on the recovery and modernization of the research and innovation system, including its infrastructure, with earmarked funds if it is possible. Then it's providing financial support to Ukrainian research community, including in collaboration with our foundation. More emphasis should be put on financial instruments that rely on competitive grant allocation and strengthening Ukraine's integration in the international science community. It's also vital that the emergency support should not be limited to programs for researchers at risk, aimed at refugee researchers. It's important to concentrate on support of Ukrainian researchers staying in Ukraine by giving them research stipends, allowing them to work remotely on existing and upcoming projects, and providing access to high-performance computers and scientific databases. So launching international collaboration, for example, bilateral or multilateral calls with, our foundation or just other Ukrainian organizations, support of, Ukrainian fundraising campaigns, inclusion of Ukrainian researchers into running programs, and of course, imposing further scientific sanctions on researchers affiliated to universities and institutions located in the Russian Federation and Belarus. So briefly, that's just, that's all.
Okay, thank you very much, Olga. First, quick question following on from what you just said. You talked about the need for long-term support for recovery of the system. How much would that cost? What price tag on it? What would Ukraine require to rebuild?
Well, as a matter of fact, the aftermaths, financially, that's really complicated to say that right now. So, the calculations are being made at the moment because we have, a special organ.
Sorry, Olga, we're having some interference from the audio technical people. Can't hear you. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. So, we have a special organ that has recently been formed by the government of Ukraine, and that was the initiative of the president of Ukraine. So this is the National Committee on Recovery of Ukraine after the war. And one of the tasks of this committee is actually to calculate the damage done. So, the figures, they are calculating that at the moment, but the figures are not final, definitely. So, but that can be easily done. So, there are instruments and, of course, tools to do that. But I'm not just talking about the restoring what has been destroyed, as such. I'm talking about, when we talk about long-term perspectives, I'm talking about just, deeper influence into the general reform of not only of the infrastructure, but of the whole research system in Ukraine. So, we badly need advice, and of course, we need support. And that's not only about money. It's about institutional support of organizations like, for example, the National Research Foundation in Ukraine, which is new. We started operating in 2020, actually, you see. So, of course, that's providing expertise too. And of course, expertise can hardly be calculated financially. But anyway, so, that's just, a multilateral thing, a multilateral support, I would say. But the figure can be easily calculated, yeah, definitely.
Okay, all right. Well, coming back to the effect of the war so far, do you have any information on the effect of the war on Russian science?
As a matter of fact, I don't have this information, and honestly speaking, I'm not very much interested in details, I would say. Well, I'm not, well, just maybe the best person to be asked this question, but this is just, well, my personal position. This is my position as a governmental representative. The thing is that something is happening definitely. And of course, the sanctions that have been, well, not even the scientific sanctions. I'm talking about the sanctions in the sphere of delivery of consumables, for example, for biological laboratories. Let's take this example. Of course, I presume that researchers in the Russian Federation are now experiencing lack of high quality consumables and maybe even equipment already. But just, well, I don't have this information, and well, I don't even know what would make me get very much interested in that. I just, well,
Okay, okay,
yeah.
but the effect overall of these sanctions, I mean, you know, the ties between Russian and Ukrainian research in the past were extensive. So are you in touch with, are your researchers still in touch with Russian scientists? What reactions are they getting? What, you know, what is the communication between them now?
Well, that depends, of course. I would say that just, well, again, this is the saying which everybody understands in Ukraine, and unfortunately, the international community does not understand it perfectly well, that the conflict actually started not this February. It, well, became very acute in 2014. And since that time, well, very close collaborations and relationships between Ukrainian researchers and Russian researchers have already been just, well, partially suspended, partially broken. So, well, that depends. Of course, on the individual level, well, again, I cannot be talking for everybody, for every researcher in Ukraine. I personally do not just, well, on principle, support any type of collaboration or just, well, you know, even communication with my ex-Russian colleagues. So, well, that's the answer.
Okay, well, Olga, at this point, let me stop you. We're going to hand over back to Marilyn in the studio in the conference room in Brussels. So, but please stay on the line because we will be continuing this discussion.